This will be the negative's final opportunity to speak. You have 6 minutes, and you may begin.
Hello. Okay. For my rebuttal, I would first like to start with safety. While it is completely understandable that the affirmative and everybody would worry about safety issues in nuclear power plants, we have to remember that time is not static. Technology has been and will continue to advance at a rapid rate, and the creation of new technology almost always correlates with increased levels of safety. I mean, just look at how far cars have come in safety and efficiency in about 30 to 40 years. It's incredible. This leads to the likely conclusion that future nuclear plants will have increased safety features. China, currently the leading country in nuclear power, has always pursued the policy of giving first priority to safety and quality in her nuclear power development, reports the International Atomic Energy Association, even though more funds are necessary to do so. It is also worth noting that in China, they've actually I don't think they've had any nuclear meltdowns. Most of them have occurred in Japan and also Europe. As for other safety features, it's worth noting that globally, the average annual deaths due to nuclear power plants is less than 13. And in total, I believe it was 10 to 30,000. There was 2 conflicting sources on the number of deaths total caused from nuclear meltdowns. While the global average for mortality for coal is 100,000 and oil is 36,000 according to Forbes. On top of that, every country which operates nuclear power plants has a safety feature introspectorate, and all of these work closely with the IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Association. Moreover, in the 40 years since the first Fukushima reactor was commissioned, I know that happened very recently, but it was commissioned 40 years ago, seismology and the size of flood hazards have made tremendous progress, drawing on advances in sensors, modeling, and other new capability. Coal is also usually what we fall back on when we don't have a lot of energy sources, also natural gas. But the fact of the matter is, although natural gas burning emits less fatal pollution and GHGs than coal burning, it is far deadlier than nuclear power, causing about 40 times more deaths per unit electricity produced, reports The Lancet, which is one of the most respected medical journals in the world based in Britain. Yet people seem to fear this silent killer far less than nuclear power, which is really only dangerous when the unthinkable happens, which is meltdowns and radioactive leaks. The affirmative also mentioned lung cancer in cases of radiation. Lung cancer is far more common in coal, like extremely common, especially for the workers. And they release 100 times more radiation and radioactivity than nuclear power plants on a daily basis. Moreover, there's just the specific fact that people are going to be scared of certain things. You know, it's part of our makeup. And this was said by Robert H. Socolow. He's a physicist at Princeton University. And he said, you know, the public is more afraid of radiation than the experts who work with it every single day. These people go to work and they're constantly around it, and most of them are completely fine, barring, you know, extreme accidents. And according to the National Safety Council, here's just some odds. The odds of dying from a motor vehicle incident in your lifetime is 1 in 113, while the odds of dying from exposure to electric currents, radiation, temperature, and pressure is 1 in 14,695, or about 0.0068%. And that's with 3 other factors in the mix. Granted, I understand that if you're directly exposed to it, there is a much greater instance that you will die than if you're in a car on a day-to-day basis. But nonetheless, you're not usually afraid to go driving to school or work or play, and it's far more likely that it's going to affect you and many other people than nuclear power is. Moreover, it has public support. In America, 51% of Americans support it to create electricity, according to Gallup polls 2015. Only 43% of us actually openly opposed it. This is notable because this was, you know, only a few years after the Fukushima incident. And while it has been higher in the past, there has been a general trend of support for nuclear energy from Gallup. Plus, it has literally helped to save lives. This is a little known thing because really only Columbia University has ran statistics on this, but it prevented an average of over 1.8 million net deaths worldwide between 1971 and 2009. Michael Schellenberger reported in his TED Talk that pollution and waste from other energy sources kills 7 million people a year, while nuclear power causes an average of less than 15 deaths per year. Moreover, it's extremely necessary to meet environmental concerns and goals, especially under the Kyoto treaty, because Most all environmental experts agree with this. For example, Germany, they really have wanted to cut back their emissions, yet their emissions have actually increased from 2009. This is largely due to the fact that they've gotten rid of a lot of their reactors. They actually were supposed to cut it by 2020, but in order to do so, they would have had to cut their emissions in 2015 alone by 17.5%, which did not happen. Moreover, on wind turbines and solar, they only work about 20% of the time, which is not very often. And so a lot of times when people come home and either the wind isn't running or the sun isn't shining, they turn to other alternate forms of energy which are not nearly as clean. When California tried to make up for this, they ended up storing natural gas in a mountain, but then it leaked so much methane that it actually undid all of their environmental safety goals for that year, which is, kind of a major setback if you're trying to reduce them. Nuclear power is also not the same as nuclear weapons, because that's another big fear of people's. The existence of one doesn't necessarily mean the existence of the other, and it's the safest way to get rid of excess plutonium and uranium for countries who do have nuclear weapons and would like to get rid of them. And if people are afraid of them, you don't have to prohibit nuclear power, you can prohibit nuclear warheads. There's a lot of different agreements you can make to ensure that it's going to be safe. You can say people can't live within a certain radius of your nuclear plant so that people aren't exposed to radiation if there is a meltdown. But we actually probably don't know that much. Thank you. Negative press.